Thank you, everyone who has made my day here so comfortable. Sorry I messed up on the communion. I was used to doing it the other way. Transfiguration. It's not the most popular theme in the scriptures, and a lot of pastors will just skip right over this one because it's a little difficult. But I got to thinking, I thought, I'm not going to do that. I've got to think about this. What is it really saying? I think that it's always held several questions for me, and the answers haven't always seemed evident. You know, they didn't jump right off the page. Sometimes you can read a scripture reading and you know right away what that means and what you're supposed to do about it. I don't find that with this one. First of all, I am wondering, what exactly did Peter, James, and John really see and experience on that mountaintop? We have the words. What really happened up there? The second question I think about is who or what did they see in the face of Jesus after the experience was over and they sort of came back down to earth, so to speak? And number 3, why in the world did Jesus tell the disciples to keep it all a secret? You would think when something glorious and grand like that would have happened, he would have said, you got to run back and tell everybody real fast. What a great thing. Now, any one of these questions could be a chapter in a book or an entire sermon, but we're going to just try to deal with them very quickly today. I promise you will be out before the Baptists are for lunch. Listen, come from a small town in Illinois. We really had to hurry up to beat those Baptists up to the Eagle's Nest if we wanted to eat lunch up there. So I know how important that is. We're going to take a few minutes today just to try to decode this passage in order that it might have just a little bit more of a meaning to us. In the title, I have the word unknown. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I'm not too big on the unknown. I kind of like to have everything, you know. I used to make lists when I was actually working. You know, I had my big yellow tablet. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the things that had to get done that day, you know. I lost my disciples' calendar one year for a few weeks, and I thought I was going to die. I really did. I thought, you know, no greater tragedy could happen than I'd lost my calendar. I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to my life, and the unknown can throw us if we let it. The unknown can just throw us. It takes us right out of our little comfort zone or the sink that we like to live in our life. But when we go back to the questions, first of all, we will never know for sure just what the 3 saw or experienced on that mountain. We can only visualize it with our own minds, our own limited capacities. Words and stories will never be able to convey the experience properly. But whatever the transfiguration was, Peter decided he wanted to stay, and he was going to erect these shelters, see, kind of like monuments to Jesus and you know, anybody else that wanted up there, Moses and Elijah. Until they heard the voice of God. Then they hit the ground. Things kind of changed. Have you ever heard the voice of God? It just stopped. It's upset your life a little bit. They shook with fear, it says. So the physical event of Christ's persona changing must have been more concrete, more touchy-feely, as our modern lingo might describe it. But the voice, and in my dramatic Cecil B. DeMille, Moses and the 10 Commandments, I imagine this big voice coming from the heavens, you know, and this is my son, you know. I don't know, maybe it was just a nice little motherly voice, but anyway, I think it was too much for them. It was total sensory overload. They had all they could take. But then, as quickly as it all started, it was over. And they were looking at that same usual, familiar face of this person they'd been traveling with, living with, learning from, and getting to know on a very daily basis. It was just Jesus again. Now, do you think that they might have been a bit confused? Do you think that perhaps for the first time they might have questioned their own sanity? One minute, there's this euphoric state that they're in. And the next minute it's just common, ordinary. What in the world happened here? They had to be a bit confused, maybe even a little scared. I think if it had been me, I would have asked myself, number one, what happened here now? Number two, who is this person I've really been running around here now for several months with? And where is this all going to go? What's happening here? Why? And all these things were the unknowns that the disciples were experiencing. As they looked into the face of Jesus, they were looking at all of these unknowns. We have to remember that these guys were just ordinary men. They had families, they had jobs, they had bills, they had concerns, just like all of us. One of my favorite mantras has always been to take Jesus and all the disciples and the whole bunch out of the picture books and put them into real life. They were just real people, all of them. And we don't know, we don't get to hear anything because women weren't important in those days, but I'm not so sure that some of the wives weren't real unhappy with them because they were gone a lot. And they had a lot of explaining to do. They were probably wondering just how were their family and their friends going to take this story when they went and actually told them what had happened. Maybe others would just tell them that they'd lost their marbles completely and that was it and wipe their hands and walk away from them, even their best friends. There were just so many unknowns. And what were they supposed to do with this event? And I really think that Jesus realized this, and that's why he told them to keep quiet for the time being. We're not going to run down the mountainside and tell everybody, because they needed to learn more, they needed to understand more, they needed to grow in their belief and their faith in this person before trying to explain it to themselves or to anybody else. Jesus knew that they were facing the unknown, and he didn't want to risk that event being too much for them, a risk that could have pushed them completely away. Instead, Jesus knew they needed more time to understand who they were and whose they were. Sometimes it's kind of easy to know who we are. We don't always remember whose we are. The event on the mountain was just a taste of what was to come. But the disciples needed a deeper understanding. They needed to know a little bit more before they started unraveling these mysteries of who Jesus really is or really was to them. They simply weren't ready to explain Jesus to other people. Peter's reaction, you can see right away. I love Peter because I always felt like I was Peter, open mouth, insert foot. That was Peter's mantra all the way through. Peter's right away, he's going to build, we're going to get a big shrine up here, we're going to have neon lights up here. Jesus, Moses, Elijah, okay, come and visit, No, that's what Peter wanted to do. That's because he loved Jesus and he believed so much. But he didn't quite understand yet. He didn't have grasp of the full meaning of what was happening here. And Jesus knew he didn't have much time left, because they were all facing the unknown. Deepak Chopra writes in his book, How to Know God, he says, you are not who you think you are. Since both your identity has depended on very limited experiences. Over the years, you formed likes and dislikes. You learned to accept certain limits. A hoard of objects acquired over time serves to prop up a fragile sense of fulfillment. None of this is the real you. Yet no one can instantly substitute the real for the false. It takes a process of discovery. And so it is with the disciples. They had to discover. They had to keep moving on, to keep growing, just as we must every day of our lives, no matter how old we get. We can only embrace the unknown one step at a time. Ask yourself, are you the same person today that you were 20 years ago? Or 10 years ago? Or 5 years ago? Or a year ago? Because if you are, you probably need to meet with Max in the office after worship service today. He needs to talk with you. Because I'm hoping that you have changed. And ladies, I don't mean just 5 pounds heavier. I mean really changed inside your heart. Changed in your thinking, your perspective, the way you're looking at things in life. We have to change, but we couldn't do it all at once. I doubt there's anybody here who cannot say to me honestly that they have never faced the unknown. You faced the unknown when you chose to get married or not get married, to have children, to change jobs, to move, death in the family, surgeries, children, constant unknown with kids. And then they give you grandkids and there's more constant unknown. It just keeps going on down the line. But it's unknown. We don't know what's happening. I was called into ministry from a very comfortable job. I enjoyed teaching high school music. I enjoyed all the work that went with it. I enjoyed the kids. For some reason, God called me to do something else, and it was totally facing the unknown. I was not only leaving a position that I had held for over 25 years, He was calling me away into another denomination. And nobody who knew me could even believe that that was happening. I faced the unknown when God called me from Olathe, Kansas to Los Angeles, California. Oh, I know what it was like for Moses to wander in that desert. I know what that was like. I was there by myself, wandering around. Not a good thing. But God took good care of me. I faced the unknown. I faced the unknown when I left California to come back to Illinois. I was having a good time in California. I was also making a much bigger salary than I've ever gotten since I left California Church. Came back here. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I knew I was supposed to go to Belleville, Illinois. I just knew it. And you know what? God took care of me. I had to face that unknown. Each step, each process was another step into the unknown. But had it all been dumped on me at once, I would have probably just run the other way and gone, no, 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 no. I wanted to be a high school principal. I always say God saved me from a fate greater than death by letting me go into ministry instead of being a high school principal. But I love the kids. In fact, my mentor once told me, he says, you have to grow up now. You can't be 18. You're in the ministry. I said, well, that's sad because I liked being 18 with my high school kids. But, you know, if I had not embraced this unknown, I would have missed all of the wonderful twists and turns and lessons and people and experiences that God shared with me, gave me, even to the point of getting to breakfast with Bishop Tutu one morning. That's pretty good, isn't it? I would have never, ever had that happen. For Jesus to show us everything at once would have been too great a risk. And his real true face would have been too much for us. Another important fact that jumped out of this reading at me was the fact that on the mountain, the disciples did not avoid looking at Jesus' face. They looked right back at him. They did not avoid that. After the euphoria, they didn't run, they didn't hide. They looked at Jesus. Sometimes we forget that. We just have to look at Jesus. First Christian Church here in McAllen is facing a lot of unknowns. Our wonderful pastor and his family are facing unknowns. You may be facing some unknown in your life right now. And if you aren't facing it yet, you probably will before the week's over. But God is not asking the church or any of us in our own personal lives to drown in the unknown all at once. All God is asking is for you to open your eyes, open your minds, open your hearts, and to move forward at God's pace. Because when you try to rush ahead of God, for me, I always stumble and make a fool out of myself. You've got to wait and do it at God's pace. And to embrace the unknown as it comes. When I was in seminary, one of the hardest things I found to do, because nursing was at the bottom of my bucket list. I don't think it even made it on the bucket list because I'm not real good with that kind of stuff. I was having trouble going into hospital rooms to visit people. I said, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do, you know? And one of my professors, God rest his soul, Neil Denton, said to me, he said, just always remember this as you're going up the elevator. God is already in that room with that person. All you have to do is just go in and join the Lord and be there for that person. So remember, as we all go into unknowns, face unknowns, God is already there in the unknowns. I think that's what he was trying to tell the disciples that day. So just embrace the unknown and let God take care of it, the rest of it. Amen.